A while ago on this channel, I covered 3 of the 7 layers on my self-made Mascot horror iceberg chart. That video ended up doing really well, so of course I had to make a part 2. I would have done this video sooner, but between Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 and my Ruined Freddy theory, I've been pretty preoccupied. Anyways, check out part 1 if you haven't already, check out my previous iceberg videos if you want to know how an iceberg chart works, and let's jump straight into Layer 4. Layer 4. This layer of the iceberg consists of games that have mostly slipped through the cracks of the general Mascot horror fandom, but they do have their own small followings. Glitched Out. Glitched Out is a game developed by Super Horror Bro, an extremely popular Mascot horror YouTuber. Technically, this game isn't completely Mascot horror, as there's no child-friendly thing becomes monster trope, but there's still a lot of Mascot horror stuff in the gameplay and lore. I did a review of this game a while ago, so just go watch that if you're interested, but in short, it's a decently unique Mascot horror game about an alien research facility full of monsters and fun little hacking puzzles. This game is quite new as I write this, so it'll probably end up being more popular by the time this video releases, but for now, I think Layer 4 suits it well. Egghead Gumpty. Egghead Gumpty is an extremely bizarre Mascot horror game, being the Euphoric Brothers' first, but certainly not last, take on Mascot horror. This game has you in a prison with this freakish egg creature named Gumpty. This game's main feature is that it's procedurally generated. However, this often results in wacky or just straight up unfair map design, due to it being the first time the Euphoric Brothers attempted at making a procedurally generated game. This game was basically completely irrelevant, until Ban came out and people started looking at the Euphoric Brothers' past, and maybe that was for the better. Andy's Apple Farm. Remember this game? Yeah, me too. Andy's Apple Farm is a short and sweet game about an apple named Andy who goes around playing games with his friends while looking for the keys to his barn. However, a ton of secrets hidden around the game reveal that we're actually playing a game haunted by the spirits of a family who all died years ago by various means. The game exploded in popularity on YouTube, however it ultimately failed to deliver on more after the hype. The game did receive a Christmas update, and the developers released a completely different game that hid more secrets, however Chapter 2 is still yet to release. Despite that, the developer does still seemingly plan to release it at some point, which is nice. Zoochosis. Zoochosis was a highly anticipated Mascot horror game being developed by Clapperheads, with the plot seemingly being that our character needs to fight off mutated animals in a zoo while trying to find a cure for them. However, after its release, the game was seen as very underwhelming, with mostly negative reviews. Now, I think it's important to mention that the main developer of this game ended up passing away during development, rest in peace to them, but this obviously resulted in the game being drastically different than what it was supposed to be, with it ultimately being finished and released in the lead developer's honor. While this is obviously a very kind gesture, the game just isn't very good in its finished state, and I think this game definitely had a lot of wasted potential, with shallow mechanics, a nonsensical story, and just an overall lack of direction. Zoonomaly. Another zoo game here, this time being developed by Lights Are Off LLC. Zoonomaly has you being tasked with entering a zoo infested with monstrous versions of animals to find what's causing them to act like this. The game is also non-linear, with various missions that are able to be done in any order, which is really cool. This game's gimmick is a light bulb gun, which is pretty neat, but besides those positives, the game is apparently pretty bad. Or so I've been told. I'm not paying $5 for this. Oh yeah, also LankyBox really liked this game for some reason. Zardy's Maze. Zardy's Maze is a game about cutting down corn in a procedurally generated corn maze while avoiding monsters. This game was developed by SwankyBox, or as you may know him, Horrorscope. For being a free-to-play game, this game has a lot of content, with challenges, tons of different enemies, custom challenges, and much more. It's a game that I would highly recommend, as again, it's completely free-to-play. The sequel to this game, Zardy's Cave, also had its first chapter released a little bit ago, so go play that too if you're interested. Layer 5. Layer 5 of this iceberg features games that are long forgotten by Mascot horror fans, or were only popular for a very short time. 123 Slaughter Me Street. 123 Slaughter Me Street is a short horror game where you make your way through a long hallway while avoiding 3 monsters that each attack you in a different way. It's basically just like the hallway crawl from FNAF Curse of Dreadmare, with one less enemy. This game was extremely popular when it came out, mostly thanks to a DA Games song, but after that, it quickly faded into obscurity. There was a sequel released after the first game's popularity, however it was pretty much a total failure. Thankfully, both games have been receiving remakes lately that have made both entries much higher quality products. Bokkie. This is easily one of the most fascinating games I'm talking about today. Bokkie is just another generic mascot horror game that combines gameplay from Poppy Playtime and FNAF. However, the story surrounding this game is extremely interesting. YouTubers Pixelicious and ML Spence made a video where they showed that one of the models in Bokkie had stolen assets from the official Huggy Wuggy model made by Mob Entertainment. YouTuber The Baddest then made a video on this discovery. However, they would later post another video where they documented the full story of this model. Essentially, a 3D modeler ripped the Huggy model off of Sketchfab and used it to make the Bokkie model. This model was then given to Galactic Crows, who sold it to AJB Games, aka the creator of Bokkie. AJB used this model for the game, got DMCA'd by Mob for copyright infringement, then had a meltdown on Twitter, before I think changing the game after the DMCA. There's a lot more to the story, but just go check out the Baddest's videos if you're interested. Sparky Marky. Sparky Marky is a very peculiar mascot horror game in many ways that barely got talked about besides a few videos. The game's main gimmick is that it has built-in Discord commands, which, if you're a member of the game's Discord server, will give you exclusive lore and secrets. This is obviously a very stupid idea, however the game also contains things such as a literal QR code monster, so it's just craziness all across the board. Beyond those things, the game is a pretty generic mascot horror game, however it did receive a sequel with a few new characters and mechanics. However, these Sparky Marky games were apparently just being used as teasers for a multiplayer game being made by the developers, and were essentially supposed to just act as teasers/extra content before the multiplayer game was released. Although as far as I'm aware, that never ended up happening. Although fun fact, the people who made Sparky Marky are the same people who made Zoochosis, which, hey, this is definitely one of the game portfolios of all time. Tattletail. Tattletail is an extremely forgotten mascot horror game made by Little Flag Software. The game itself is a short story-driven experience about opening up your Furby toy before Christmas. Yes, this game's main character is just a Furby, although obviously they're not called that here, and now you have to care for it and all of its needs, or else Mama Tattletail will come to kill you. Tattletail has seen a bit of resurgence in the modern day, with people saying that it's what the mascot horror genre should have been. Which, honestly, they're kinda right. But the game's best days are clearly behind it, as most people have completely forgotten about the game since its popularity. Fred's Cereal Company. Fred's Cereal Company is an upcoming mascot horror game about trying to escape a cereal factory so that you can quit your job, while avoiding the factory's employees and solving puzzles. The game is being made by CH757, and while it currently has a demo on itch.io, the full game is not yet to be released. I'm actually kind of excited for this game, as it seems to be taking a My Friendly Neighborhood direction by incorporating survival horror elements, as well as comedy elements. The demo was pretty popular on launch, however since then I haven't seen any discussion on it, though who knows what'll happen when the full game comes out. Layer 6. Layer 6 of this iceberg covers games that most mascot horror fans probably don't know exist. The most these games have gotten in terms of coverage is probably a video or two at most. Venge. Venge is a game that was popular for a few days because of one minor controversy that basically had zero merit. The game was made by a YouTube animator named Eckercoaster, and the only reason this game got popular at all was because Eckercoaster claimed that Mob Entertainment had plagiarized Venge when making Poppy Playtime. However, if you've actually played both games, it's very obvious that the game is completely different from Poppy Playtime, with the only similarity being the plot. The few people who bothered to play this game disliked it because of its lackluster and inconsistent gameplay. However, it is getting a remake soon. Let this be a lesson to actually make claims with merit and to investigate claims yourself before making assumptions. Circus of TimTim. Circus of TimTim is quite possibly one of the laziest mascot horror games ever made. Not only is the entire game just collecting tickets at a circus while avoiding enemies that are barely a threat, but every single enemy in this game is a purchased model. Not a single enemy in this game is an original model or design, and between that and a small amount of coverage, it is a pretty obscure game that I assume didn't do too well, which makes complete sense to me. Greg's Deadly Draft. Greg's Deadly Draft is a mascot horror game that takes that term to a whole new level, as it features an actual sports mascot having you go through a series of tests to see if you're able to join his football team. The game actually does have some pretty cool features, like fun boss fights and a cameo from Peak. It's a decent game that has, unfortunately, barely received any coverage, besides a few playthroughs and a Glamrock Dusky review. I don't think the game is nearly as funny as some people think, but it's still pretty neat and deserves more attention. Toytopia. Toytopia is a very unoriginal mascot horror game about exploring an abandoned toy store. How many more of these are going to come out? However, despite that, I do like a few aspects of it. First of all, I think this magician design is honestly pretty cool, and I think it would work a lot better as the game's mascot than this thing. Also, the game's gimmick is a magic wand that can move things around, which is a pretty cool idea that I think is used decently well. To me, it really sucks that this game is generic as it is, because the good elements here could definitely be used in a more original setting. The game does have a sequel in the works, and all I hope is that it's more original and expands on the good stuff. Leenie Boog. Leenie Boog is a decently unique mascot horror game about running around your house trying to prevent this weird creature thing from entering, sort of like that one Fazbear Fright story. This game did receive quite a bit of coverage a couple years ago, however since then it has completely fallen off, besides a popular Dags video. The game currently has a sequel being worked on, which is pretty nice to see, as I think the original is pretty cool and scary. Layer 7. Layer 7 covers the bottom of the barrel. Mascot horror games that basically no one knows about or remembers. Playtown. Yet another generic Poppy Playtime clone about an indoor playground. I've heard that this game is better than a few of the other generic mascot horror games, but I still doubt it's anything good. There's currently 2 chapters of this game, but again, the game is a glorified copy-paste. Hide Time. Hide Time is yet another generic Poppy Playtime ripoff. I mean, it's so shameless that half of the title is the same as Poppy Playtime. The game's Chapter 2 is currently in development, but I wouldn't pay much attention to it. I love Poppy Playtime, but its effect on the overall mascot horror sphere has been truly devastating. Meatly's Storage World. Meatly's Storage World is an ironic mascot horror game created by the Meatly, who is the co-creator of Venge. This game was released in 2023 and was made to criticize modern mascot horror games, most likely Garten of Banban specifically, for being extremely generic and boring. The game actually did see some decent coverage for about a day, but since then literally nobody remembers it anymore. It's nothing special, but it does its job well. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Making this 2-part series of videos covering some of my favorite and least favorite games of all time has been quite an undertaking. However, the results have been absolutely worth it. Thank you all so much for part 1's reception, and I hope you enjoyed part 2 as well. You should also comment down below any other ideas you have for future Iceberg videos or general videos on my channel. But anyways, that's all from me. I'm Supersonic, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.